Well, the haters gonna hate, 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 and the fakers gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna make, making luck. Slay the Spire podcast. Hi, Adam here, and before we get into this episode, I just want to remind you that this is a 0.5 episode, which means that, it's about Slay the Spire, which is not Dominion, and as such, all three of us that are on the episode, Jake, Wandering Winder, and myself, we're not as authoritatively able to discuss what we're talking about the same way we would about Dominion. So just keep that in mind, and also, along with authoritative discussion comes with preparation. It's a lot more difficult to prepare for an episode like this, and it definitely shows. There's been a lot of edits and a lot of cuts made, and that's just because the discussion gets off topic. It derails into something that we kind of decided maybe wasn't worth putting on the podcast. To put some perspective into this, the recording session for this episode was just under 3.5 hours long. And, you can see how long this episode is. We got it down to under 2 hours. So just keep that in mind. If you hear some cut where the conversation just abruptly shifts, that's why. I probably edited out a very large swath of stuff, and you're welcome for that. A couple other things. I have an announcement that I didn't have when we recorded this, but I want to get out there as soon as possible. I finally have a date for my next IRL tournament in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's going to be on Saturday, March 28th. It's at 1 p.m. There's going to be a link in the description to a Facebook event, which is going to be, I think, the main hub for where information will be put out. However, if you want to go, if you have any questions, or if you just want to show up or anything, contact me using any of the channels that you have for contacting any of us about the podcast. Certainly love to see you there if you want to give it a shot. Finally, the next episode is probably going to be actual episode 100 of the podcast. Just want to let you know we're probably going to be doing just a bunch of kingdom analysis, rolling random kingdoms, giving our analysis and thoughts of what we think we would do. It's an idea we've been kicking around, and while episode 110 is probably going to be the actual, quote, celebration episode of this, where, we might do something a little more special, I just want to let you know that that's coming up, and I think we're excited to be doing that. Anyway, enjoy the episode, and thanks for listening. Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Theoretically. Not right now, though.
I'm Adam, and this is Jake. Hi, Jake.
Hey, Adam. How are you?
I'm alive.
Yeah.
Had a fun weekend.
Yeah.
We ate some bad crescent rolls and refamiliarized ourselves with the toilet.
Oh, good.
I'm sure you really wanted to know that.
Yeah.
Jake, in case you didn't know,
is also alive. Weirdly enough.
Yeah.
I assumed I would be dead by now, but it's not been happening.
Yeah, statistically speaking, we thought it would be that way.
Yeah, it seems really unlikely that I made it.
Define now. Maybe by the time that the
we hear like a
listening to this, I don't know. Maybe it's this podcast episode will clearly still be being listened to like hundreds of years into the future.
Yeah,
and at that point, what we just said about us still being alive will not be true.
Unlikely.
Yeah, it's like how stars
for certain senses of alive.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I could actually get in a car crash on the way home, and then that'd be really creepy, because I'd be talking about being dead, but I'd actually be dead.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. It'd be weird, man.
This podcast will be the last thing we ever had to hold on to Jake with, which is funny. But anyway, also, Wandering Winder's here. Hi, how are you?
Who is Jake?
I don't know. I forgot.
Does it really matter?
Yeah, no.
Jake is a subject matter expert we brought on
for
this episode.
Who are any of us, really?
Yeah. He doesn't know anything about Dominion anymore. He forgot all of it.
Yeah, I don't know what a Dominion
What's
is.
What's a smithy?
Yeah, I gain a kingdom.
Yeah.
Dominion is one of the ranks of and the Angelic Hosts.
Yes.
That one.
So
anyway,
not even kidding.
Yeah, so this episode is, you may have noticed, it's a 0.5 episode.
Yeah.
You thought the next episode would be episode 100, didn't you? Well, you were wrong, and you should feel bad, actually.
Also, you apparently didn't listen to the end of the previous episode where we talked about us probably having 99.5 as the next episode. Tisk, tisk.
Yeah. So, for a while, they, even when, I was on the podcast about Dominion, and I'll be back someday, I'm sure. But anyway, so
Making luck.
We had talked about like how we both like this game, Slay the Spire, and maybe we might do a Slay the Spire episode at one point. And me, Adam, and Wandering Winter all play Slay the Spire, so it seemed like something that was bound to happen at some point, and here we are.
That day is today.
That day is today.
We're doing it, man.
Whenever you're listening to it, it's today.
Yes.
And wherever you are, that's where you'll be. And I love you just the way you are. Anyway, this is the whole episode is going to be about Slay the Spire. So
was that a combination Tarzan and Mr. Rogers?
Yes, thank you. Oh man, this is why we're bros. So in any case, this whole episode is going to be about Slay the Spire. We're going to talk maybe a little bit about Dominion, but this is going to be about Slay the Spire. So if you're not interested in that game, then
listen to the next 5 minutes, so you will be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're not interested in that game, let's reevaluate your life choices right now.
Well, I was gonna say, if you don't know what the game is, we're gonna tell you.
Yeah.
But if you decide you're not interested in the game, then
you're wrong. But more
then
power to you.
maybe just move on to the next episode about fine. Dominion. It's been real, but make sure your seatbelt is buckled if you're driving.
So
or
let's talk
if
about
you're a passenger in a moving vehicle.
That too.
Right. There are a lot of reasons to wear a seatbelt, but Slay the Spire, there are maybe just as many reasons to play that.
But less important.
Yeah, but less important.
That was a really good segue, Jake.
Thank you.
Do you wear a seatbelt on a Segway?
You haven't done a podcast with Wandering Winter in a while.
No, I have not.
Welcome. Good luck staying on topic.
So, Adam, Wandering Winter, and I all just happened to play Slay the Spire. Why is that?
I play it mostly because Jake recommended it.
Yeah,
so
and I started playing it because I got exposed to it in the Dominion Discord. And Wandering Winter, how did you find
I got exposed to it because I was watching a stream on Twitch of a comedy group based in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, called Loading Ready Run. And they played that one day, and I watched it, and it seemed pretty fun.
That lore was surprisingly deep, but what I was getting at was that there's a lot of overlapping fan base between Slay the Spire and Dominion. And part of that is just because they're both really good games, and they're both, like, I'd say, like, they both appeal to probably people who are, like, high-end, like, need for cognition. Like,
there's also
like, require you
mechanically similar,
yeah. They're both card games.
They're both card games.
Yeah, and that's I love all card games.
Yeah,
because I like Dominion. No, I was being sarcastic. I dislike most card games.
Yeah, I mean, both of the major Dominion servers, Discord servers, have a Slay the Spire channel at this point because people kept talking about Slay the Spire.
There's 2 major Dominion Discord channels?
Yeah.
Servers?
There's ours, and then there's the other one that says it's official, but isn't as cool as ours.
I mean, they're both, I mean, I guess you could call maybe ours not quite as, like, major.
It's funny, I'm
there are people in
2
it.
Dominion Discord servers and no
Which
other
court?
ones. There's the playtesting.
Okay.
But that doesn't have a
without any other descriptors, both of the Dominion servers I'm in, they both have a Slay the Spire channel, and they had to do that because people kept talking about Slay the Spire in the Dominion channels, and what that just gets across is that there's a huge overlap in fan base here. Like a lot of it's almost like for a while it was just assumed at a certain point that if you play Dominion you also play Slay the Spire.
I never assumed that.
Well, I didn't, but I do now that I play Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
Rip.
Anyway, we should probably describe like a little bit of the basics of, besides it's a card game, what Slay the Spire is. So
it's a video game.
First of all, it's a video game that basically you've got a digital.
Yeah.
You can play it on Steam, or you can play it on the Nintendo Switch.
Or I think
there are PS4 and Xbox versions too.
Yeah. There's a lot of platforms.
I play it on the Switch.
It's also coming to iOS soon.
Oh, that's kind of lit.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool.
RIP Android users.
I don't know when Android's getting it, but I know they're doing it for iOS. But yeah.
One day I hope to get it, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a roguelike, but it's also a deck builder.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is implied by roguelike because I've never understood what roguelike means, but it's one player which is one of the things I love about it, because like, let's say I'm calling somebody because
Yeah.
I have to call somebody and be on hold for like who knows how long because, my internet is acting up or something, and I don't know, whatever, if you have to be on hold waiting for somebody because they're supposed to provide you a service and it's garbage. Like, I can play Slay the Spire in that, and like,
Yeah.
I don't have to feel bad about like, I could just drop it in the middle of the run, right? And it'll come back.
Yeah.
When you have a baby, one-player games.
You,
Well,
you don't want to drop the baby.
I was going to say
Yeah.
I would not recommend dropping the baby.
Yeah.
I love competitive games because I love that drive to just like do everything I can to win, and sometimes it still isn't enough, and sometimes it is enough, and that's like kind of what I live for in competitive games. But then that requires a person to be there, so there are practical issues with that. Like, I can't play it online or whatever.
I don't know. I think you could play one-player competitive games, but that's not...
Well, but with Slay the Spire, like, I get that drive because the game is so brutally difficult. And also, because it's procedurally generated content, I never feel like I can, which is part of, like, what people mean when they say roguelike, is, like, the content gets, like, changed a little bit each time you play, and there's permadeath. So, it's challenging my brain in the same way I'm, like, looking at a PvP competitive experience to do, because I can never just, like, figure it out or memorize how to do it. Because it's different every time, and it's also on Ascension 20, the game is so hard that I'm challenged the same way that I would be against.
So I think this is one of the other big things we should mention pretty early is that you talked about it being really hard, and it's really hard on like the most competitive version top difficulty level. But there's a bunch of different ways you can play, right? You can play at 21 different difficulty levels from no Ascension to Ascension 20, 0 through 20, right?
Yeah.
You can play with 4 different characters, although we're only going to talk about 3 today because the 4th one just came out. Some of us have more or less experience with that character.
I might mention a few things, but like not.
I've never played with the 4th one. It's not on the Switch yet, so I don't have access to it.
But there's also like a bunch of modifiers that you can run with that let you like mix the different classes or do all kinds of weird different stuff.
Yeah, there are custom modes, and even beyond that, there are daily climbs, quote unquote, where you can like have some wacky modifiers applied to a run, and that changes day by day, and that's really appealing for some people. And I would love to play that, but they only put it on the lowest difficulty, so it's like not really interesting for me.
But in that way, you can compete with other people for like score.
Yeah, right.
There's a scoring element too, which like when you're just trying to win on the hardest level, you usually don't really care about score because why? It's hard enough to win. Yeah, it's hard enough to win.
So yeah, it's a roguelike, and it's also a deck builder. So as you're going through the dungeon fighting these procedurally generated monsters, the way you interact with those fights is through a deck that you've built, and a deck that that changes throughout the course of the run, based on what you put in or take out of it. And so the deck builder mechanics is how you interact with the game, but the game itself is a roguelike experience.
Right. So
yeah, and just to gush about it from a design standpoint, it has a mix of having this extremely deep skill curve, like being extremely skill rewarding until like the high extremes of difficulty. It's like a pretty much 1-to-1 relationship of like you putting your skill into it and seeing results getting better. Like there's this,
I call that strategic depth.
Yeah, and there's it's so skill rewarding and at the same time so accessible. And usually games can only, not usually, but like
it's hard to do each of them, so to find a game that does both of them is special.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to do each of them, and it's even harder to do them together, I would say. Like, because a game that has like strategic depth usually needs to like have a bunch of like convoluted mechanics to like get that across, so there's like a big like learning process, but Slay the Spire doesn't have that. Slay the Spire eases you in so well, and a lot of the things are so intuitive and interesting and easy to approach. So the game is approachable and also super deep, and that's why it seems to appeal to every type of player that way.
So when you're playing, the basic course of how things go is you go into a fight, you use your deck to try to win the fight, right? Your deck has cards that deal damage, it has cards that defend you. And you get a turn, your enemies get a turn. And then at the end of the fight, when you win the fight, hopefully you win the fight. Well, if you die, you die, and that's just the end. You have to start over, on a new run. Permadeath. But if you win the fight, then you get some rewards. Most commonly, you get a card as a reward, you get some money, and you might get a potion, right? And then you go to the next fight, or you go to the next room. So not all rooms are fights. That's the most common kind of room is a fight, right? But then there's some other kinds of rooms. So there's shops. So that's where all the money helps you. You can buy new cards or potions. You can buy the opportunity to remove a card from your deck permanently. And there's also elites, which are harder than your normal fights, but give you bigger rewards, right? So
in addition to adding a card to your deck, they give you a slightly better card, they give you more of that gold, and they give you something called a relic, which is a persistent buff that you get to your character. It's not in your deck, it just applies to you as you're doing all your things.
And there's lots of different kinds of relics. Some of them help you in fights in particular ways. Some of them help you as you're moving between rooms. So in the overworld of the map. And then at the end of so the game is kind of separated into 3 acts, each of which are 50 floors.
Well, no, I think
all
game
3 together are 50.
Well, except for Act 4. The 3 acts combined to make 50 floors,
Right. It's 17 each or something. Anyway.
Yeah.
At the end of each act is a boss. So the boss is harder in some ways. Mostly it's bigger, so they have more HP. It takes longer, it takes more to beat them. That's and there's 3 bosses for each act that you could get. You get one of the 3. And so there's all kinds of different patterns, whatever. But basically you go on to this where you do fights, the reward, you use your deck to win the fight, and then from winning the fight you get to improve your deck, which then goes into the next fight, which you use that improved deck to try to win the fight, and you get the rewards from the fight to try to improve your deck. And so you're going kind of back and forth between those, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just your deck, it's also your relics and your potions. Potions are a mechanic where you got to use them once and then they're gone.
You have a tableau of things going on, and you use that tableau to interact with these fights in different ways. And I think that for the most part, we are going to be talking about just kind of our opinions on the game, and some of that is going to get into what things we think are good or bad, but this episode I don't think is really meant to serve as a strategy guide or anything.
But if you want to read a strategy guide on Slay the Spire, # link in the description.
So I actually just recently finished a strategy guide that is sort of geared toward advanced play at trying to win on Ascension 20, which, as we alluded to, is very hard, but it also the tips in it apply to lowers as well. You can check that out, and it goes into a lot more of what at least I personally think is good or quote unquote optimal or whatever, if you're trying to just win as many of your runs as you can.
Game theory optimal.
But for the most part, I think we can all agree this is kind of a mix of us writing a bit of a love letter to the game and also just gushing and giving our hot takes and also arguing with each other.
You want some talking about how you two are wrong about everything.
Yeah.
How you two are wrong about everything.
And so
I think we can get started with talking about. I mean, we've already mentioned a lot of similarities to Dominion, and I think the first category of those similarities is what makes the game fun.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get started. I can't speak for everyone else, but I can tell you why I find the game fun.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to 2 main things. The first thing is I really like roguelike games.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I played Rogue, the the game that the whole genre was named after, with
the OG,
with ASCII art, and like the monsters are just capital letters that you fight. And I played the crap out of that game as a kid. I was so bad at it, but I played so much of that game. And like that's just a big part of my childhood, and it got me really hooked on the genre in general. Now when I see a roguelike, I usually just get hooked on it until I complete them, and then I move on. Yeah. So at that point, for me, the replayability is gone once I conquer it. And that's typical of roguelikes, that they're very difficult. They're really, really tough to beat. And, you may play like 100 to 200 runs, and you might win one of them as you're learning.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not, inherent to... That's not, like...
It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. It's not baked into the DNA. It's more of a convention of that genre that they just tend to be difficult. Just because people tend to expect difficulty out of them.
I know there are roguelikes out there that just ramp up their difficulty endlessly until you die. Like, that also exists.
Slay the Spire has a mode for that, by the way.
Does it still? I know it did for a while,
still exists.
But like, it was kind of broken.
It still is. I have literally never touched it. In my, 2,000 hours of Slay the Spire, I have never even, touched Endless Mode. It does not sound appealing to me.
Huh. So that's the first thing I really like, is that it's a roguelike.
Yeah.
And I really like that. Fun fact, guess what just happened with Slay the Spire? I got done with it. So I'm kind of moving on. I'm playing Mario Odyssey now, which is a great game. But once the fourth character comes to the Switch, I'll probably go back and play a lot of that.
Yeah.
But in any case, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I really like games, this goes for a lot of tabletop games, where you try and find synergies and make them work in ways that feel creative. And both Slay the Spire and Dominion really scratch that itch for me. You're given just a bunch of random crap, and you need to find a way to make it work the best you can.
Yeah.
And it feels like you can come up with creative solutions. You can take something that's normally bad, and maybe it's good here. I really like games that scratch that itch for me. And then finally, Grand Finale is a card. Man, I just love that card. Anyway, so Wandering Wonder, what makes Slay the Spire fun for you?
Well, the fact that Grand Finale sucks makes...
Well, no, okay.
It is not time to argue with each other.
I will say, most people like Grand Finale, as a card. Most people really like it.
It's the most fun I've had playing.
Do they really?
Yeah. No, they like it.
It's so
That's
much
the thing.
fun.
Part of the reason they like it is because it's bad.
Okay.
But
the problem with that is that it is one of the best cards in the game, but we'll argue about that later.
Yeah, we'll
anyway,
argue later. But
what I like, I mean, you've covered a lot of what I like. I actually think there's a lot of replayability, mostly...
there definitely is.
Mostly down to the relics. The relics are rare enough that you're unlikely to have the same combination of relics, once every 1,000 games or something, right?
The relics give the game a lot of life.
And the combination of those relics, which are often pretty strong, and you want to adapt your play to the relics you get.
Yes.
Along with, of course, the cards that you get, which there tends to be less variability there because there's some commons and you see enough of them because you get one every fight. That there's still pretty good variability from the cards, but there's less variability there than with the relics. But the combination of the variability from the relics and from the cards gives some good replayability. And not only that, but Jake's going to say something else.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what you said, I agree with. It's the combination of those things, but there's a third thing even that's interacting with that, which is the map layout and the different events and the pathing that you have access to and the boss that you're going to fight. So
we didn't talk about events yet.
Yeah, I mean, there are random things that can happen.
They're just like events in Dominion.
Yeah, they're just like that. You buy them and
they're very different.
Yeah,
so events in Dominion are more like... Well, I guess relics would be more like projects.
I have the section on
potions.
Actually making analogies and let's
we can stretch.
Are we gonna have
I intend
neutral, chaotic, one of those type chart things?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there isn't replayability. I got my Switch in June of last year.
Yeah.
And over 6 months later, I finally moved on to some other game.
That was not Slay the Spire.
Slay the Spire was the only game I played on my Nintendo Switch for 6 months. Over 6 months. Close to 7 months. And judging by the pace I'm going through Mario Odyssey, that is not going to last 2 months and probably won't even last a full month. So that's how much replayability this game had for me. It's just, for me, I feel like, okay, the replay, I had a great time with it, and I'm sort of ready to close the book and move on to other games. And that is not the case for people like Jake.
Yeah, no, like, I'd say I'm probably the, like, it's not a contest or anything, but I'm probably, like, in fact, it's almost, like, lamentable.
It is a contest.
Like,
Jake won.
I, quote-unquote, won. I'm probably, like, the most, like, hardcore Slay the Spire fanboy I know. Because, like, I've been playing this game for, like, since before I was born. And,
how long have you played the game?
I don't even know, because it's spread across different places. On my Steam account, I have almost like 1,700, almost 2,000 hours.
Holy crap! I thought I had a lot.
I've also played on my girlfriend's Steam account because she wanted to level up her Ascensions, and I play on the Switch. And so between all of it, probably 2,500 hours, and I have no plans to stop or slow down. If anything, I want to play more. It's like, so yeah, this game has some replayability. Yeah. Yeah, and like I just love how, like, every time I still feel like I'm learning something new every time I play. Like, even no matter how much I play it, no matter how familiar I get with things, I still feel like every single run I learn something new.
I feel that way about Dominion. I totally know that feeling. Yeah.
Definitely feel that every single run I learn something new. But I often play
Sometimes the thing I learn is that I hate a certain thing, but yeah.
I often play it like a bit more casually, like I've got 20 minutes to burn. I don't really want to think too hard. This is a game I can play that way. But you can also play it like really in-depth, trying to analyze. Like I put out a bunch of videos, and you can see from my videos, I'm usually like not thinking that hard when I'm playing this game. Like, it's pretty often where I'll be in the middle of a fight and I'll be like, and obviously I played those in the wrong order, but I just don't care enough to like sit there for the extra 5 minutes to work it out the way that I should do it.
I definitely like sitting there for the 5 minutes.
Click.
Yeah, part of the mark that like makes this that is telling me like, oh, this is a good game, this is a really thoughtful cerebral challenge, is that the slower that people play, the better they do. Is like something I found.
And like, that's a lot like Dominion for me too.
Yeah, like the more time that I take to like think about the different repercussions my actions have, the more value and output I can get out of any given situation, and you know, that has ripple effects throughout the whole run. So like, the other really cool thing about it is that these things that happen that seem insignificant at first, if like later down the run when you die, you might be like shocked at like, oh, if I hadn't played that block card instead, I could have ended the fight a turn earlier and then not taken that damage, and then upgraded this card, and then taken that elite, and then had a relic, and who knows what would have spiraled from there. So yeah,
or I could have waited 5 turns after when I actually did win the fight, so I could slightly more optimize my relics that trigger every so often or whatever. And it's like,
right,
there's lots of little optimizations to do, and they might not all be obvious, at first, but if you really want to try to maximize what you're doing, there is, like, it's not hard to get, 80% of the way there, but the last 20%, there's, like, a lot of little stuff to do.
Yeah, and that's, like, where I think, so, like, I will say that a lot of people really dislike the last 5 Ascensions of the game. A lot of people feel like they are, and I think like they're considered like, unfairly difficult, quote unquote, whatever that would mean. But like,
that's why I like them.
That's why I like them too. It's like that last 20% that is so hard to get. It's required to beat like Ascensions, like 18
It's also
plus.
nice to know that I'm pretty sure there's a substantial percentage of runs that, like, if you could just do them, a million times to figure out okay, I don't know what's coming, but maybe if I do this a million times, I'll find a way to win. I think there's a decent percentage that no matter what you do, you can't win at the top difficulty level.
My guess is that percentage is far less than 1%.
Yeah,
That's my guess.
So, okay, this has been talked about a lot, actually.
I think it's probably pretty small, but if you don't go through it a million times and you're just trying to say, I don't know what's going to come, so I'm going to play what the best thing is, quote unquote, in general, I think it's probably more than 1%.
Dominion.
Yeah.
Slay the Spire.
There's some neat little analogies about Dominion to Slay the Spire. I think it's kind of neat that concepts like deck control and payload translate very well.
Do they?
To Slay the Spire in concept, right? Deck control is things that help you play more cards, and payload is the cards that do stuff that win you fights. So you can actually use. This is how I learned a lot about Slay the Spire. I was like, oh, why is this card good? Well, it's a deck control card. It helps me play more cards. Why is Seeing Red a good card? Because it helps me play more cards if I need more energy. I'm not saying how good it is. I'm just saying, why would I want to play this card?
Sure.
What benefit does it give me?
Idea, the intent of idea behind the card. Why does this card exist? Why did the developers think, oh, this is a thing people might want?
Yeah, and you can use those same concepts, deck control and payload, to look at oh, here's the deck control concern when I add a card to my deck and understand the value and weaknesses of running a thin deck is good in these situations, or it's worse in these other situations. What were you going to say, Wandering Windrow?
I don't know.
Yeah. So
right.
deck control and payload in concept are actually they translate really well to Slay the Spire.
I've never thought of it that way in Slay the Spire, because almost every card in Slay the Spire, not every card, but almost every card has, I guess, what you would call a payload component, right?
Yeah, most of them.
Really?
For the most part.
Yeah, I can think of a handful that don't, that only draw cards or give you energy, or I guess exhaust. But most cards deal damage or give you block or weakness or vulnerability or something like that.
Yeah, cool.
So I also don't really tend to think about it that way, but again, different people are going to have different mental models of this.
You can actually look at things from a different perspective. It's really interesting.
For me,
you can be wrong and think like Adam, or
for me,
I didn't say how helpful it was.
I'm just kidding.
The weird thing for me is the idea of deck control, because in Dominion, I can build a deck that I have something I would call control.
Yeah, I can do that in Slay the Spire too.
Yeah, but it's much worse.
No. It's not much worse. It's just a lot harder to do.
It's a lot harder.
It's a lot harder to. Yeah, it's a lot harder to.
In fact, it's a lot better in Slay the Spire than it is in Dominion.
Because the rule in Dominion about your cards staying in play.
Yeah, right.
Is not true in Slay the Spire. So you can draw and play every card in your deck 17 times in Slay the Spire, which I have to tell you is a lot of fun.
It's amazing.
Yeah, okay.
In the same turn.
I'm going to agree with you guys wholeheartedly that when that deck is viable, it is, extremely fun. That those decks are so fun to play. I think the disagreement I would have is, how often that's, ever.
I don't think there's much disagreement there. That almost never happens.
Yeah, it's, not a thing. Drawing your deck is, a niche tactic that'll happen in a custom run. It
happens. Really... You can do it in Ironclad because you can exhaust other cards.
Yeah, I do it in Ironclad pretty often.
Yeah, I'm doing it in Silent.
They all have different ways of doing it.
My favorite ever deck was a Silent deck where I had is it Outmaneuver that gives you extra energy the next turn?
Yeah, Outmaneuver is energy.
And that card is not typically very good, I don't think.
Unless you can draw your deck, in which case it's a bust.
Right. So I was drawing my deck and I had an Outmaneuver or two, a bunch of backflips, a couple of blurs, so I could keep my block across turns. and like almost no way to deal damage, right? But every turn I was getting extra energy from playing these outmaneuvers more often. And so I was just like drawing my deck an extra couple times and playing everything an extra couple times and sitting on a million block and doing like my 20 damage to the boss. And man,
yeah, it's great. Like, so a lot of the time the things that are like, so like not every time, because obviously like there needs to be contrast for this to like be interesting, but a lot of the time the things that are like janky and like knowingly bad are like the things that we have the most fun with.
A lot of things that are really bad get really good when you're close to or drawing your deck. And that's true in Dominion, and it's also true in Slay the Spire.
Where things which are normally bad, you get into that extreme area where they suddenly turn good. That is so often so much fun. And this is part of, I think, what Adam and I don't like so much about some of the way that, especially like the end of the game is designed, because it really disincentivizes you from doing that and really, really pushes you to build everything balanced, all things, which I think is good for normal play, but I would like for that extreme case, which is so much fun, to be like not normal, but possible.
Yeah, so like I will definitely, like, I want to acknowledge something you guys have said is definitely true of the heart fight, which is that in like a lot of fights in Slay the Spire, if you are good enough at a thing, you can use how good you are at that thing to compensate for not being able to do other things.
Yeah.
Like if you have a poison deck that has like burst and catalyst, and you can scale with that so quickly that the enemies just don't get a chance to attack you much, it's okay that you're not that great at blocking. Or, you know, if you're the defect and you have so much orb stuff going on and frost and whatnot, it's okay that your damage is lackluster because you never take any.
It's the one lightning orb I start combat with. It's the only way I can do damage.
Or like you're scaling with like Blizzard or something. Yeah. And I will say that the heart has some things that the heart has basically a hard 16 turn limit. On turn 16, he gives himself a buff that basically says, okay, we're done here. I'm getting 50 strength and you're dying next turn.
Intangibility.
Well, intangibility. We don't need to talk about intangible. But yeah,
I recently had a deck which had tungsten rod and a bunch of intangibility, and I got to tell you, I wasn't defending against the heart at all. Who cares?
Was that actually good? It turns out not taking damage is pretty good. Yeah, no, intangible is
so
one of those
intangible means all damage you would take gets reduced to 1, and tungsten rod says any damage you would take gets reduced by 1.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. But the heart has a combination of things going on. On turn 16 or 17, you die, and like pretty much no matter what is going on, unless you like Wandering Winter said have intangible, but it's hard to have that for 17 turns. Also he has a cap on how much damage he can take per turn. So you can't just be so fast at dealing damage that you don't have to block. So the result is that against the heart, you have to have consistent output of mitigation and damage to meet your damage quote-unquote quota for the turn, and also block his attacks. And you have to scale quickly because he has 800 health. And card plays are a resource because they do damage to you. So there's a lot going on in the heart fight that definitely limits the things that can beat it. But I think the different perspective here is that you guys are looking at the things that you can't do, and in my opinion, it's more of like a restriction breeds creativity kind of thing. Like it just makes it that much more impactful when you figure out something that does work.
I'm all about restrictions breeding creativity. In fact, I think that's I think that's where a lot of fun exists. My issue is that I don't want the same restrictions every time.
Yeah, actually, no, I agree with this. I wish that there was a different boss that was not the heart, that was as hard as the heart.
Yes.
that you could fight as well.
Yes.
I want that.
Absolutely.
Like that's the
that
next
would make
thing
Slay
I
the
want them
Spire
to.
I mean,
a much
that's-
better game for me.
That's one of the great things about the first 3 acts, right? Is
Yeah,
maybe you
exactly.
build a, some decks are just stone cold dead to Time Eater, but there's 2 other bosses you might get.
Yeah.
Some decks rely on playing 30 powers because they're, playing with creative AI, and the Awakened one will just murder them. But, you're not always going to get the Awakened one, so maybe you can build around that, and you don't get the Awakened one, and you're doing great.
Side note, Awakened one, for me, personally, just lately, has become the most terrifying Act 3 thing just in the game. Like,
I always breathe a sigh of relief when I see the Awakened one. I think
15 regen. It's too much regen. He has too much health, and he has
I
like...
don't really worry about the regen.
It's more like a combination of the fact that he is really high sustain with his regen. He has a huge effective health pool because of his respawn mechanic, and he also has strength scaling when you try to scale. So like it's not any one of those things. It's like the fact that I hate
No,
but,
I've genuinely gone into that fight and been like, man, if it was just the Awakened one, I'd be fine. But these 2 cultists will kill me.
That's hilarious. I mean, I believe you because that deck sounds like plausible to me.
It's because like I had enough like single target damage debuff,
right.
and then I would scale enough that I could beat the second half fine. But
Yeah.
it was all like single target damage debuff and the 2 cultists scale.
Right. This is true. But
the other thing is energy in Slay the Spire is a lot like actions in Dominion.
yeah.
If you think about that, and it's really interesting, you can extend the concept of terminals and non-terminals and villages using this idea, but that's not helpful. It's just really interesting to think about. Anyway.
I mean, it's not totally unhelpful. It's just because there's so few what would be equivalent to villages.
Meteor Strike is a village.
Not terminals. I mean, yes.
It's one of the best villages in the game.
I'm not saying there's none. I'm saying there's few.
Sundial is a village.
Well, actually, no. Actually, this is like interesting. There's a fundamental difference between getting things from a relic and getting them from a card, which is that like the relics.
Projects can be villages.
Yeah.
Events can be villages.
It's like buying an event instead of buying a card.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me,
so relics are like projects.
Relics are like projects. Yeah.
Ogres are like onions.
Yeah. So
I just want to point out that this is we've crossed the line here to where Dominion analogies are actually helpful for Slay the Spire.
Yeah. I mean, I think
wanted to get that
we
out
were
there.
we were gonna have a section where we just talked about like what our favorite stuff is in the game.
Can we do that?
Can we do that?
Yeah, Wandering Winder, you go. We'll do rapid fire.
Yeah,
You do
so-
one and then
Let's do cards first. Yeah.
Okay.
Wandering Winder, what's your favorite card in the game?
I don't know. I'm just gonna pick one of my favorites because I haven't sat down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't pick
So,
it either.
It's perfect strike, not perfected strike, right?
It's perfected.
Perfected Strike, yeah.
Perfected strike. It's an ironclad card. Perfected strike costs 2 energy. It's in the ironclad's pool. It deals 6 damage, but it deals 2 additional damage for all your cards containing the word strike in their name.
So, Perfected Strikes contain the word strike.
Yeah. Woo! Also, you start the game with a bunch of copies of a card called Strike, and other characters have some strike cards, but Ironclad in particular has Pommel Strike, Twin Strike, Wild Strike, a bunch of strike cards.
Of the Realm.
And so I love to get me a bunch of perfected strikes. It's my best use of the relic Bottled Flame, get it in my starting hand. Maybe I get some headbutts so I can play the same perfected strike multiple times in a single shuffle.
And Pommel Strike is good because it draws your perfected strikes.
Oh, synergy!
Right.
And now there's the new relic Strike Dummy. Strike Dummy is a new relic that says all of your cards with the word strike in them do +3 damage.
Does it count as something to buff perfected strike?
Yeah, it buffs perfected strike.
But
it's not.
Okay.
It's not a card that says
It's
strike.
not a card. It's a relic.
It's a card-shaped object. Yeah.
There's
Not
strike
even
form.
card-shaped.
With
It's
the
more
power strike form.
like
No.
shaped.
Yeah.
But yeah, so perfected strike, and like I've had decks where I always start with a Perfected Strike in my starting hand. I often have 2 because I have like 6 copies of it, and it's dealing like 180 damage or more.
Yeah.
I have
And,
a relic
like-
that gives vulnerability at the start, and that's like enough to one-shot some bosses and stuff, right? Like,
Yeah, and that's
bam.
amazing.
And it's so much fun.
But and it's really, I think you even said earlier, it's really bad, right? Like,
I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty
as
bad.
far
You
as-
need to get a lot of stuff to come together for it to be any good, and then
And then it still really might just die.
can't beat the heart because there's a damage cap. But rip heart.
Well, it could beat the heart. I mean,
had-
it has the kind of damage that's really good against the heart, which is like
Yeah.
consistent front load. And like it's like built in like its own kind of scaling. It's weird.
You just need 150 HP and you'll be fine.
Yeah, the problem is it can't block.
Well, I've had a deck that was built around this that I think might have been able to beat the heart, but it's like you have to have such a big deck that your deck
Yeah.
is pretty inconsistent after, all your start of combat.
Yeah, I mean, but
lines up.
there are some like benefits to that too, and like if you have corruption and stuff, like
Well,
sometimes that
yeah,
actually
and you
is
have to
viable.
get the corruption, and it's a
have to get
70 card deck, and
Yeah.
you're going to get the corruption fast enough.
Hey, if you have Bottled
weird.
Flame, you might as well have the bottled whatever.
Yeah,
like-
the bottled whatever, the tornado.
Yeah.
No, tornado's a
whatever.
power. Oh, corruption is a power.
Yeah, corruption's power.
Yeah, the
it's also
bottled-
a rare card now.
Bottled whatever.
Yeah, the bottled whatever.
I irrationally dislike corruption.
When you say dislike, do you mean you dislike it just like from a design standpoint, or like you don't like having it?
No, I mean like I take it way less often than I should because I don't like exhausting like sweet precious cards.
That's fair. Yeah.
Or it's more that I'm like afraid that okay, now I've exhausted all my skills. I have no block left. I haven't killed them yet. I'm going
I
to
do
die.
that a lot, and I die because
See,
like there's
just leave out the dying part, and then you'll be okay.
there's a like that deck that you're describing is so strong and so easy to screw up, and like as I've talked about Dominion and stuff before, you've probably like one of my favorite things in any game mechanic is giving you room to fail, and like corruption gives you room to fail.
So is corruption your favorite card, Jake?
No, I didn't mean to interrupt Wandering Winter. I feel like there's more to say about Perfected Strike.
that was. We'll get back to my next favorite thing in a minute, but let's swing over to you now, Jake.
Yeah,
What is your
okay.
favorite?
Favorite card?
My favorite card.
Wait, you don't.
It's hard to choose. Is the thing.
It's easy for me to choose.
I know what yours is.
Grand finale.
No way.
Yeah. So my favorite card is probably. I'm gonna cheat. It's 2 cards. It's All for One and with Claw.
One for all?
It's Claw for One. Now, don't get me wrong. Okay, this deck
I'm judging you so hard right
this
now.
deck I'm about to
Remember when you
describe-
tried to give a Dominion card like two ratings,
Yeah.
and I gave you crap for it?
Yeah.
Just
This
that.
is that.
Man,
Yeah.
you
So
did that all over your Slay the Spire rankings.
I
You
will.
gave 3 rankings.
Okay, well, yeah, there's a ranking for taking this card in Act 1, and then if you take it in Act 3, that says something else about your deck. But anyway, so
I mean, yeah, Chapel isn't very good on turn 18, but
Claw for One. This deck I'm about to describe is god-awful, by the way, but it's so much fun. So All for One is this 2-cost attack. It's a rare card. It's a 2-cost attack that does 10 damage. We're off to a great start.
it draws you like 7 cards.
It says take every card that costs 0 from your discard pile.
Which card?
Discard. And put it into your hand after you play the All for One. So the idea is that the All for One does 10 damage plus what all the 0-cost cards do. Because you play all your 0-cost cards, and you play All for One, and then you play all your 0-cost cards again. Now, that would be kind of interesting on Defect. That would be a fun deck to play. It's really bad, because you have a bunch of 0-cost cards.
It's pretty bad.
It's
Sometimes it's really good, except it can't ever beat the Heart or the Time Eater.
so...
Rip.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even have a way to refute that. But okay, but now we come into another one of my favorite cards, and this card is a bit of a meme in Slay the Spire, but like really
Love me a
this card
claw.
this card has some uses actually. This card legit has some like reasons you would take it in Act 1 and
It's
have it actually-
scaling!
It is scaling. It's early game scaling, and it's like okay at what it does. But like people try to build around it because the card is like kind of trying to tell you to build around it.
There's actually a number of cards in the Defects card pool that synergize with having a bunch of zero-cost cards,
Yeah.
like Claw.
I would love for that deck to be good. It's not.
Two.
But yeah, so Claw is a zero-cost attack that starts out dealing 3 damage for 0 energy, but it says all of your Claw cards, after you play a Claw, now deal +2 damage.
For this combat.
So
Not forever.
every time you play a Claw, all your Claws get sharper. So you play All for One, and you play the same Claw multiple times. Maybe you've got 4 Claws. How did that happen? I don't know, but you're playing all of them.
Every time you could, and it was a common.
Yeah, and maybe you went to the library event, and you looked at 1 of 20, and you
Obviously,
saw
I'm gonna
like
take Claw.
you saw like Echo Form and Bias Cognition and Buffer Plus, and you're like, no, Claw! I'm building a Claw
I
deck!
didn't know you could find upgraded cards in the library.
I don't remember.
If you have
need a toxic whatever.
one of those relics that
one of
upgrades
the
everything.
eggs.
You
Yeah.
have whatever egg, yeah.
I don't actually know if
the eggs.
library cards have it. Every card you find has a chance to be upgraded.
Because of the eggs.
Not because of the eggs, but just like you have a chance. Every card has a chance to just be upgraded.
Leave a comment in the comments section. I'm pretty sure you can't do it. But
No, there's a percentage chance it increases.
leave a comment in the
No,
comments.
I can
section.
literally. You can bring up the
decreases
spreadsheet. There's
certain
like
ascension levels.
it has it decreases with an ascension level, and Act 2 it increases globally. But I don't know that applies to combat rewards. I don't know if it applies to
Yes,
things like
combat
the
rewards, but I
library.
don't think
Library.
events or...
I don't. Yeah.
Not
Or
sure about
or
that.
like
Yeah,
cards
so
you
I'm
get
right.
with potions or yeah.
Great.
Anyway.
Everyone's right. Great.
So yeah, maybe you play your All for One and you have a turbo in your deck, which is a 0-cost card that gives you energy,
man.
and all of a sudden you play your All for One and you get your more energy from your turbo, and all for a sudden your All for One is letting you play cards that don't cost 0 because you were out of energy because you have a really bad deck.
Maybe
And-
you have a pyramid and...
and you've got Scrape and you're draw. Okay.
So you
No.
like that deck, yeah.
I like that deck. It's terrible.
Can I recommend? Can I
Yeah.
recommend as part? So that's one of my favorite decks, also.
Yeah. Similarly, I
most
love the
fun
Perfected
bit,
Strike deck that you
There's that that Act 3 event where you either lose max HP, gain health, and have to take like a
yeah.
Oh yeah, the one where you lose max HP.
Yeah, and lose max HP, the event.
So yes, but when you're playing
But
with
you
that
get
All for One
Madness.
deck and you have multiple copies of All for One, you take the Madnesses and you get it to where since most of your cards cost 0 anyway, you Madness and make sure it hits All for One, and then 2 All for Ones that cost 0 is
Yeah.
an infinite loop.
Now, I will say that
Sounds amazing.
Like
It's
the
great
deck,
and can never beat the Harder Time Eater.
the deck that I described is pretty bad because like it's basically a meme that you go all in on. But All for One isn't necessarily a bad card by itself, especially if you have Snecko Eye. All for One, like
Oh, I think even without Snecko Eye, there's a number of 0
yeah,
cost
I mean
cards
even
for the
without
character is just fine, right? The one that gives vulnerability, the one that gives weakness.
I mean even like FTL can turn it into like a cantrip.
FTL, there's a block card that costs 0 and does
Steam
lots
Barrier.
less every time you play it. Yeah, Steam Barrier, that's a fine card.
Yeah.
Good Instincts,
Yeah,
the colorless one.
if you have that.
There's a number of cheap colorless ones that are fine.
Yeah, so
Cantrippy ones.
Impatience is
recycle
Weak.
upgrades to cost 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the moral of the story is that the All for One is a fine card. It's just that this
All-in
deck,
claw deck isn't good.
this deck we've described is terrible, but it's so
It's
much fun.
great, just not if you want to win.
Yeah, it's great for like your health mentally, but not if you want to win.
Adam, what's your favorite card? Is
yeah.
it Grand Finale?
So it's called Grand Finale. It's my favorite card. I
Yeah.
like this card a lot. It's really good. There's a restaurant actually not too far from where I used to work. It's
Is
called
it at the
Grand
edge of the
Finale.
universe?
It's called Grand Finale, and it's actually quite good, but it's like only old people go there, so the name is a little like you kinda
Morbid?
Wonder.
Oh god, it took me a second.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought I'd point that out. Anyway, Grand Finale. It's a silent card. It's rare, and it's a 0-cost attack. and it says deal 50 damage to all enemies.
50 is a lot in this game.
Sounds good. What's the
It's
catch?
really good, but the card can only be played if there are no cards in your draw pile. So it's not like you can just have a clean shuffle and play it. No, you got to get all the way down to exactly the end of your draw pile. Otherwise, the card's completely unplayable.
Yeah.
Is the easiest way to do that to just draw your whole deck?
Draw through your deck. Silent starts with so many cards. I've never been able to get to the point where I can actually draw my whole deck as Silent. Oh, Silent doesn't have any way to exhaust other cards either, so that's unfortunate.
You just have to remove them all, Adam.
No, you use that really good discard. You remove as many as you can, obviously, but what you do, you find yourself building like your entire deck around this card, which is something Jake says you should never do. But the thing is, I think I've played like 5 or 6 runs where I did this, and I won 5 out of 6 of them, and like some of them were on like really high Ascension.
Yeah.
Grand Finale is absolutely amazing when you can get it off. Like, it just ends most hallway fights.
That's
when
true.
you play this one card. It costs 0 energy.
Even most elite fights, it should probably do the job.
Right, when I say hallway fight, that's what I meant. But, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's quite good, and I love just the build-around nature of the card. Just really anything that draws cards, even if you're discarding those cards or some cards.
If you somehow got all for one, you could get it back with the all for one.
That's right. If you have Prismatic Shard.
Prismatic Shard, by the way, is my second favorite relic.
It
is so much fun.
Let's get to relics, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
Grand Finale.
We'll do relics later. So, but Grand Finale, man, this card is so great. But it's rare, so normally you're seeing it like after the first boss.
Yeah.
And so hopefully you've been exercising good fundamentals so far and removing as many cards from your deck as you can, and hopefully you have some dagger throws or whatever. But like there's some really good support. You can actually use the discard package in Silent to really good effect. You can put Tacticians in the deck, and by the time you get to Act 3, you can be like going through your deck multiple times a turn, finaleing multiple times in a turn. And, you know, I think these two would tell you that this is a bad deck. I've just never really failed with this deck.
I would not tell you that
I would not tell you that that's a bad deck. I would tell you that trying to aim for that deck is likely to set you up for failure in many cases at high Ascension levels.
That is exactly what I would say.
But
that's
not my experience. And how many times have you tried to do that, Wandering Winder?
By the way.
I've tried at least 3 or 4 times since you talked about having it, and I died horribly every single one of them.
Oh,
maybe I'm just not as good at it as you.
I mean, I've gotten pretty good at building Grand Finale decks.
Yeah, this does come back to what Adam and I were talking about earlier. This was actually before the episode about how like people thinking things are weak. It could just be them being weak with them, right? So like, I don't think Grand Finale is a particularly strong card. This could just be me as a player.
You're not good at Grand Finale.
Yeah, it could be that Grand Finale is a better card than I'm giving it credit for, and that if I increased my skill with the card, I would get more results out of it. That's possibly the case. One thing I will say, and this is about Grand Finale, is a very, very well designed card, because just everything about it has, like Adam said, it's like asking you to like do a bunch of stuff. It's giving you hoops to jump through that are just annoying enough to be like kind of difficult, that you like feel like you're actually doing something, and then but also realistic to do some of the time. And then when you do it, it's got this unique animation that plays, and so like it just gives you this like really awesome feedback for everything you just did.
It's the most fun I've had playing Slay the Spire, by far.
Grand Finale is an excellent card in terms of design. Like, there's no, like, it 100% belongs in the game. It's
overpowered.
I not gonna go there, but it's like, Grand Finale is definitely like the pinnacle of design in Slay the Spire, I would say.
I wish there were more cards like it.
I would be fine with that, actually, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to point out that there was one run. A lot of times I'll be like Facebook chatting with Jake over like the 2 days it takes me to do a run because I have a baby.
Yeah.
And I'll be talking about a lot of my decisions with him. And there was one run I had this grand finale deck. It was going really strong, better than a lot of them are doing by the end of Act 2. Get done with the Act 2 boss, and the Act 3 boss is Time Eater. And it's like, wow, Time Eater pretty much hard counters this deck. Should I pivot away from Grand Finale? What do I do? I mean, you do play a lot of cards, and Time Eater doesn't like it when you do that. And so...
Time Eater loves it when you do that.
Well, okay, that's fair.
You don't like it when... Yeah.
So...
Did we lose Wandering Winder?
No.
No, he's there.
Oh, okay.
So I decided eventually, and this is not something Jake approved of, that I was just going to double down. I was going to lean into the Grand Finale and just hope that the raw power of Grand Finale would carry me through and allow me to win the Time Eater boss fight.
Have you tried Cooked Power?
Did you win?
I did.
All right. So...
I did win against the Time Eater, and that's because Grand Finale is that good of a card.
That's good. I mean,
if you can get a deck for it, right, where you really can control to be playing it very often. Actually,
at
just
least
be,
once.
That's it. No, that's it. If you can get it to where you can be playing it very often, then it's really, really, really good.
Not even often.
It's just hard to get that deck going, in my experience.
It's not easy.
I would say that like a lot of the disagreement that we have about how good things are and how viable things are doesn't really come down to how good they are. I think as a finished product, it comes down to the process of getting there versus the result you end up with.
For sure.
And so, I'd agree that like that Grand Finale deck you described is amazing, and if I could start a run with that deck, I would totally lean into that. It's just it's really hard to do it, and like and usually going for it comes at the cost of like other things that I like to try to do. But
Grand Finale is great. Any other cards that you like, Wandering Winder?
There's we've covered a lot of them, from my Silent Max Turtle deck to the Claw for One to the Perfected Strike deck, but there's one other. Again, it's a 2-card kind of combo thing, but Barricade.
Okay.
Which people often decry as being really terrible, because often it is, but kind of like Grand Finale, if you can get it to work, it can be so good. So basically, the other key piece for making Barricade work is Entrench.
So I thought you were going to say Body Slam.
What?
I thought you were going to say Body Slam.
Well, that's usually what you want to do for damage, but like Entrench is so I've had this deck a few times. It's hard to get because Barricade's a rare and you need to have the time to get it set up and all that stuff. But basically, the plan of the deck is Barricade, which is a rare. It's a power, and it means that you don't lose block between turns, right? So you get that. You get a few copies, I don't know, 2 to 4 copies of the uncommon Entrench, which doubles the amount of block you have. And you can see where this is going. But man, when it comes together, chef's kiss, man. So, right, you're just playing Entrenched, and so I had some 30 block from last turn, so I play an Entrench, and now I have 60 block, and I play another Entrench, and now I have 120. And you deal 30 damage to me, but who really cares, because I still have 90 block, and then I play 2 more Entrenches, so now I have 360, and you do 30 damage to me. Well, who really cares, because I play couple more Entrenches, and suddenly you realize that there's a block cap in the game, and you can't get over 999, because otherwise you're doubling forever. And then, you usually want to have like a Body Slam to deal some damage at some point. Like 2 this or 3 deck, damage. If you can get it to come together, right, you want to have very few cards other than like couple Body Slam.
Screw the Body Slam. I'm going to like just trickle him down with Juggernaut.
You could do that, but not against the Heart. With Body Slams, this deck could take on the Heart.
Yeah, actually, that can work against the Heart. It's just like you said, really hard to get Barricades.
Really need to get it going fast enough is the big thing.
Yeah,
having some way to get a huge amount of block at the beginning is pretty important. If you're facing like a boss that does 60 damage on turn 2 or 3.
I don't have those.
Nah.
But there are ways to do it, right? You can get
Impervious.
And then get an entrench or two and be gaining block every turn. I've had this deck a couple times, and you do sit at 999 block for a while, and you just have to wait to find your
strike.
Your body slam. Usually, it's usually not that hard to find body slam.
Yeah, right. I mean, body slam's a damage common. Those are in abundance. Okay, so like, yeah, I understand liking Barricade a lot. I really like it too when it can work. Strategically, of course, the problem with it is that, like, it's like you said, it's a 3-cost power, and it's like a deck that can make so much block that it has a surplus of block to make Barricade worth it probably doesn't like have trouble blocking. And I mean, what does Barricade help you do? It helps you block. So.
But sometimes it does, right? Because the entrench thing is really like the biggest incentive to go for that, in my experience, right?
Yeah, there's like spiky bits of block.
Yeah, and then body slam is another payoff, and it's very different from where you usually want to be. Although some of the other cards that you normally want anyway do fit in. Just some of the good block commons like Shrug It Off or True Grit.
Yeah.
Really nice in this deck, especially to help you get going, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's like all of our favorite cards. Does anyone have any other pet cards they want to talk about?
I have like a couple of pet decks.
Okay.
Kind of like a Wandering Winder set. I like the whole Exhausty thing with Ironclad, but not necessarily the corruption version of it. Where, like, I would rather, like, play an Offering in a Battle Trance and then, like, play 1 or 2 cards that I want to keep and then Fiend Fire the entire rest of my deck away. So now my deck is, like, 3 cards. But I've chosen these 3 cards for this particular fight.
I don't want to choose the cards. No, I just want 3 random cards. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I have, maybe 10 cards in my deck, and they all can do lots of different things. But I can choose the ones that I want that are good for this fight. I can use to win that fight. I think that deck is really fun.
No, absolutely. And actually, I want to come back to that when we get to relics, because my favorite relic in the game
is Dead Branch.
No, it has something similar going on.
Yeah, and then just any kind of infinite damage combo. So like, I like the heel hook and the drop kick. With the Flash of Steel, that kind of thing.
2 drop kicks plus vulnerable, and then you draw your deck and just play the same 2 drop kicks over and over
again.
That feels really good.
And I'm picturing like what
that's
that
like the
would look
most
like in
common
real life.
infinite that I've seen people do.
I'm picturing the Ironclad just like one of those like pendulum ball things, like kicking back and forth, like.
There's like 2 Ironclads, and I one of them
whacking
the guy,
each other.
By the time he lands,
he's Ironclads, Adam. How can there be 2?
Well, there's not at the same time.
Actually, lore-wise, it would make sense for there to be 2 because the Ironclad is actually like a class of soldier.
But the Ironclad that you play as is the only one that's left.
Yeah, that's true.
What I was gonna say though is that there's not 2 at the same time. There's like the one Ironclad drop kicks the enemy at one side of the room, and as the enemy's flying across the room, Ironclad runs to the other side, catches the enemy, and drop kicks him back to the first spot, like they do in those old cartoons.
This is the theme of Slay the Spire when you're playing a Dropkick Infinite. Like that's what's happening.
And you can't ignore theme.
Yeah,
that's right.
You're just gonna lose games.
Yep.
But really,
weird. You're not even playing Dominion.
Yeah, I know it's hard to lose Dominion, but you found a way.
The more convoluted the infinite damage combo, though, like the one that involves Meteor Strike for defect, where you play Meteor Strike and it serves as +1 energy. Then you play Meteor Strike and Skim in any 0 energy damage card, and you can just play that 0 energy damage. Like it was a claw once, just play the same claw infinitely.
My favorite is it's not technically infinite, but it's really, really close to infinite. Like that silent deck that I was talking about, where it had this outmaneuver, and so I was playing my whole deck 20 and then 30 and then 40 times every turn and dealing, I think my only damage was like the neutralize, right? So I was dealing like 4 damage every cycle.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
great.
Fine. It's enough.
It was enough. It really was.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was before the heart existed, because it wouldn't have been enough.
Speaking of things that are maybe not infinite, but like
Large?
pretending to be.
A large
Play the
finite
same
numbers?
flex like
This
4
is-
times in a turn. And,
This is getting toward talking about relics, so I'm kind of on the line here. But
yeah, let's move to relics. Go.
well, okay, this isn't my favorite relic, but this is one of my favorite things to do. And that's like, as Ironclad, you have Necronomicon, which has it's a good relic, but it also, the important part is it comes with Necronomic Curse, which is a card that says there's no escape from this curse. What that means is that whenever you can't remove it from your deck, and whenever you would exhaust it, it goes right back into your hand. And then you have Blue Candle, which says you can play unplayable curses, and when you play them, you exhaust them and lose 1 HP. Okay, now you have this card that you can play, and it's like in Dominion when you trash a fortress. And then you get to just keep playing Necronomicurse over and over again and exhausting it.
And dealing 1 damage to yourself every time.
And losing 1 HP each time, yeah. So that we're getting somewhere. And
yeah, we're killing ourselves slowly.
But like if you have exhaust synergies, like Feel No Pain, that Necronomicurse becomes like as much block as you want / can afford. And then I had a deck that had this with Necronomicurse, and I also had Rupture.
I was going to say Rupture is the big one with this, right?
Yeah, whenever you lose HP, you gain a strength.
I had that deck with Feel No Pain and Body Slam. That was pretty hot.
So I had this situation where I had Necronomicurse and Blue Candle and Rupture. So basically, as soon as I drew the Necronomicurse, I had to figure out, okay, how much strength do I want this fight? And I just played the Necronomicurse that many times, however much I was willing to do. And then, so that was one of my favorite decks ever, partially because it wasn't super easy to play. Because I had to figure out how many times should I play this to get strength. Like, what do I need? But yeah, it's interesting.
I like cards like Rupture because I normally won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, but it has its uses where sometimes it's really strong, right? I love niche cards.
I learned recently that Rupture works with burns, because burns count as a card, as one of your cards that does damage to you. So,
nice.
There you go.
I mean, the main one with Rupture is, what's the name of that power that you draw a card and lose a life every turn?
Brutality.
Yeah, Brutality.
Berserk is...
it's the other one.
Okay, so that was...
More relics.
We're going to call that a little bonus segue, because that wasn't my favorite relic. But Adam, what's your favorite relic?
My favorite relic is Pandora's Box.
That's a reasonable take.
That's a boss relic. It's in terms of most fun.
Correct.
It's probably the best thing to get from Niao in terms of just like craziness.
Oh man! If you have any random seeds where you can give up your starting relic and get Pandora's Box, just send them to me because I just love playing those runs. There's so much fun to just like flush everything down the toilet and just start with random Garbo.
Oh, my first A20H on Watcher was one of those runs. I took Pandora's Box. Everything got flipped out. And for the first, 5 floors, 80% of my cards were powers that didn't do anything. But, yeah.
That sounds like fun.
But it turned into a broken deck.
So Pandora's Box is my favorite relic. It's kind of like if you threw away your starting deck in Dominion and just, picked 10 random cards out of your box.
Yeah.
And that was your starting deck in Dominion.
Yeah.
That would be so much... In fact, we should do that.
New variant!
And, some of them are projects that you can't do anything with.
Yeah. No, my favorite is when...
Scouts?
I play Chapel and I trash this landmark.
Yeah, my favorite part when I take Pandora's Box is when I get a bunch of cards that, literally have no way of playing. I get it on defect and I get, 2 Meteor Strikes. It's I can't play this for, an act and a half, and, even then, it's sus.
Yeah, so Pandora's Box is a boss relic, and it when you pick it up, you just transform all of your strike and defend cards. So It's pretty good on Act 1. I usually take it on Act 1 whenever I see it, and there are very few exceptions. Usually it's Runic Pyramid. That's the only exception.
It's a very strong relic.
It's very good. Like, it's actually good, which really helps.
I rarely take it.
It can be... Well, it can suck when you don't have block. Like, if you... So, like, not to get too dry and strategic here, but, like, I will take Pandora's box.
Sometimes you die because you get a bad box.
Yeah, pretty much I will usually take Pandora's box if I have some block that's not defense. If I have some block I'm not about to lose,
I don't care. I will take Pandora's box, and I will let the cards fall where they may. It is amazing. It's amazing. And I already talked about my second favorite relic. It's Prismatic Shard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's bad. It is a lot of fun.
Okay, Prismatic Shard is bad. However, I've never taken it myself, but there are 2 use cases for it that I learned recently. One was I watched Jorbs, who's a YouTuber / streamer for Slay the Spire. I watched him do a run with it, and like one thing I learned was that like every class has things that they're good and bad at. Like, certain classes have certain strengths in their card
Body
pools.
Slam is amazing in classes that aren't the Ironclad.
And so, like, yeah, theoretically, you could get access to, like, tools that are just good for everyone. Like, if I see Leg Sweep and I'm not the Silent, I don't care that I'm not the Silent. Leg Sweep's a great card.
In fact, a lot of cards are better in other classes because...
Oh, yeah.
You give Prismatic Shard to the Watcher, and weird stuff happens.
That's true for all the classes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Whenever I see it and I can afford it, like, I just buy it.
Sure. Yeah. The other thing is that there is a legit strategic use for Prismatic Shard, and that is in the Act 4 shop. You can buy it, and you never intend to take a card with it, but here's the thing. When you have Prismatic Shard, you also get 1 orb slot. And when the shield attacks you, he applies a debuff to you. It is -1 strength.
Yeah.
Or if you have at least 1 orb slot, it gives you a 50% chance to get -1 focus instead. So you can buy Prismatic Shard, and the Act 4 Elite will drain your focus instead of your strength, but you're not the defect, so you don't care about focus.
Woo! Edge case with Wandering Winder.
That wasn't even that... I mean, that's an edge
pretty
case.
edge casey.
That's a super edge case.
We did it,
because
guys.
it's like a lot of money to spend for a 50% chance that...
It's also like, was that really the best thing in the shop?
I've gone into a shop where I had like 2,000 money. I could just buy everything, so I guess. But...
Yeah, and...
Favorite relic, Wandering Winder, go.
Yeah.
Unceasing Top. So Unceasing Top is a relic where if you have no cards in hand, you draw a card. And if you remember, in this game, you can play the same cards over and over and over again. So, like, maybe I'm playing this Claw for 1 deck, and most of my cards cost 0. This relic can draw me a ton of cards in a turn, right? If you can generate enough energy, you can go infinite with this because it draws so many cards.
I mean, even without the energy and what you're talking about, sometimes you can like just make a deck that is unceasing.
Yeah. There's a really bad card in the Silence card pool called Concentrate, where you discard 2 or 3 cards and get some energy. It's a bad card, but it's really good.
Actually okay with Runic Pyramid, but yeah, go ahead.
It's also really good with Unceasing Top.
Yeah, Unceasing Top.
Because you don't like having an empty hand, and you do like having extra energy so you can play more cards because you're going to draw more.
Anything that gives
you... remember that you have it, because I can't tell you the number of times where I've forgotten that I have it because it doesn't come out up much.
Oh,
and so
you think
I
that's Unceasing
play my
Top.
hand and then hit end turn, and then as the turn is ending, I draw the next card, and I'm like, no!
Oh, you think that's bad with Unceasing Top. Wait till you have a few runs under your belt with Ink Bottle. That is like the MO of that relic.
Gremlin Horn's the one for me. I always forget that I have it.
Gremlin Horn is one. For me, it's also Anchor. is one. Any inconsistent source of
Block.
blocker energy. Like Happy Flower too, I'll forget about, because I'll like be used to having a certain amount and be like, oh, I'm out of energy now, but without like looking at.
Oh, that's not a problem for me.
Yeah, but Ink Bottle is one where like every 10 cards you play, you draw a card. It's really strong, actually. But like, I always forget that it's about to happen.
Any draw that you don't pay energy for is really, really good. And any time that you just get energy is really, really good.
In particular, any relic that draws you cards is extremely powerful because it's something that's not in your deck that's helping you access more of your deck. And that's the value of that really cannot be overstated. That's why things like Bag of Prep are so good. And Unceasing Top, when it is good, it's really good.
Any more relics? Any more favorite things?
Did you have anything else to say about Unceasing Top?
No.
Sweet. So you want to argue some more?
Well, I want to talk about my favorite relic here.
Oh.
Kunai with chain.
It's not Kunai. It's Nilri's Codex. So,
It's an event relic.
first off, it's an event relic. You have to basically go to an event and pay a bunch of HP for it, and then you
Have a 1 in 3 chance to
you
get it.
you get one of 3 relics, but they're all pretty good. Nilri's Codex, it helps that it is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful relics in the game. But what Nilri's Codex does is, at the beginning of...
You think this is one of the most powerful relics in the game? I think this is pretty mediocre and my least favorite of the 3 books to get.
I think it's, like, one of the most powerful things in the game, period.
Necronomicon is sometimes much better and sometimes worse, but...
Yeah, Necronomicon is weird. It's on Ironclad, Necronomicon has a huge ceiling. But Nilri's Codex has a lot going on, and it's the kind of powerful as well that I really like in the game. And I stand by it being one of the most powerful things in the game, and there are 3 factors behind that.
Can you explain what it does?
Yeah, so that would probably help.
He was going to do that before you interrupted him, wondering when...
I'm very good at criticizing from both ends.
At the beginning of each turn, you look at 3 cards. They have to be, like, eligible from your pool, and shuffle one of them into your draw pile. You can skip it as well, so you can just not take the card. But you get to look at 3 cards and put one of them into your draw pile if you wish. Okay, let's talk about the 3 things. And there's some conceptual overlap between what I'm about to say, but just like it's kind of like 3 different ways of looking at this. One is that there's this concept in Slay the Spire of balancing, when you're building your deck, your long-term priorities and your short-term priorities. There are times when you have to like take a card just because you need something it does right now to get through the next few fights, but it's not a card that you think will be good later on throughout the deck, but you'll like still have it in your deck later. So like, cards like Wild Strike, or sometimes even you could talk about like Carnage like this, or the opposite. Like there's a card that you think would be really good later on, but is not very good right now. Like let's say you're
Grand Finale.
Honestly, yeah. Grand Finale is a great candidate for this. Or you might be looking at like a Piercing Whale versus some like front-loaded damage. It's like you really want the Piercing Whale for later in the game, but like the Piercing Whale's not what you need. Okay. Nilri's Codex doesn't completely absolve you of that concept. You still have to like build your deck intelligently, but a lot of it goes out the window because you get to... It just fundamentally changes how you get to build your deck. You can just take cards that are generically good or pretty much always going to be good, or maybe cards that fit into your long-term plan, and the cards that you need for right now's capabilities, you can try to get those from Codex. Again, it doesn't like always work out that way. You have to like build a little bit, but you get a lot more leeway if you have Codex. Why do I like it so much? It's because I really like the idea of selecting the perfect cards for the fight that I'm in, of thinking about how these cards I'm looking at this turn not just interact with my deck in the whole or outside of this fight, but what do they mean for right now in this fight? And that's like really interesting. There's just No Risk Codex always keeps you like thinking on your toes, and like, you know, because skip is an option too. It's like, should I take this card? Is it better than nothing? And why? It's I don't know. I just think it's a really interesting relic, and the game is much better because it has No Risk Codex in it.
Good for you, man. I don't think it's all that great.
I don't either. I think it's fine. Like, I'd rather have it than not have it, of course, because I can always turn the stuff down, but if you told me going into that event you're going to take 13 HP and get a Nilri's Codex, I'd take it sometimes, but I wouldn't take it that much.
I would try to make sure I have enough HP before I got to a question mark, just in case I got Nilri's Codex. Like, it's like, it does so much. Like, my likelihood to win the run when I get Nilri's Codex has just hugely increased. Like, it's a significant thing. It's a run-changing relic.
The thing that I tend to not like about it is just like, it goes into your draw pile and you still have to draw it and it still costs all that amount, and it's like, okay, that's fine because you don't have to take it, right? You don't have to take anything. But I don't know. I just don't think it's that much of a bonus to add some cards that then dilute me from seeing all the other cards in my... I mean, it's fine.
They don't dilute.
It dilutes you from seeing all the other cards that are already existing in your deck. Because
that's the point. It's not...
well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that was cool. Arguing is fun. What else do we want to argue about? Dead Branch? Busted Crown? Seeing Red?
I didn't think we were going to argue about Dead Branch so much as say, like, it can do some crazy bananas broken things.
I've actually never had that happen to me before.
Really?
Yeah.
So Dead Branch, by the way, does have the same thing going on with Nilri's, where it creates many more rare and uncommon cards on average. I don't put that in the same category as Nilri's because you don't get to choose cards with Dead Branch, so it's like, it's a different thing happening, but like, you do get more rare cards for whatever that's worth.
The biggest thing was, like, I actually think Dead Branch is overrated because people think it's just so broken all the time, and I think you need to have support for it.
It's just like that support is so ubiquitous. And
it used to be more like, when you could get Corruption pretty often, then yeah, Corruption plus Dead Branch is very good. But
no, but yeah.
But like, I don't think that it's really that ubiquitous that you're getting.
Well, it's... I mean, the thing is, like, you don't have to have a bunch of cards that exhaust to get a lot of value out of Dead Branch. You probably at least have, like, 3. And, like,
but then you're adding 3 random cards to your deck, and that might be good, and it might not. It's
true.
not broken. It might be... It's probably overall net positive, but that's not even that clear. If you've got 3 cards that exhaust.
I will agree with you that it's easy to overvalue Dead Branch when sometimes it's just a good relic to have. But,
I mean,
like, when you have it, you can start building into it and make it OP very easily.
I think it's much closer to, like, Unceasing Top than, oh my gosh, this is the most broken thing in the game.
I mean, like, it's not...
Unceasing Top you can also build into. You take more zero-cost cards. You take...
Sure.
You know...
Yeah, I personally find it a lot easier to build into Dead Branch.
So my experience with Dead Branch, obviously I care more about bad cards. Dead Branch just takes away your ability, under any circumstances, to decrease the size of your deck. So if you wanted to exhaust other cards in Defect or Ironclad, you can't do that anymore. All that ability is just gone. So if that was any part of what made my deck good, Dead Branch is worse than nothing. And this has happened about half the times I've seen Dead Branch. Weirdly, for some reason, I've only been offered Dead Branch like 3 or 4 times. And I don't know. I know it's like not a common relic.
It's a rare relic. Rare relics come up less often than anything else in the game because
are they really less often than like a specific events? Are they?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
guess they probably are.
Rare, because there's a big pool of them, and there is
Possibly
low
shop
chance to
relics,
see
depending on
anything
how
from
often
it.
you go to shops.
Yeah, so like, and by the way, I think that's a good thing. If Dead Branch came up, Dead Branch changes a run so much in this that it makes a run so different than it was before. I'm not even talking about power at this point, just qualitatively, it's a different thing happening. I wouldn't want to see it very often because, like, I don't want something that has that distinctive a flavor or impact on the run to be a really common occurrence. Like, I want my Dead Branch runs to be unique and Dead Branchy.
Yeah, it's just that in my experience, which is a small sample size, it's just more often than not, I feel like Dead Branch is worse than nothing. And so I understand that, okay, maybe it's situational. Maybe my decks aren't the best for it. Maybe a lot of things. Maybe I'm just offered it too late in a run when I'm already committed to a certain way where it can hurt me. And maybe other people don't get that. But it's just so strange to me to have that be my experience and have other people say, which I'm not saying you're saying this, but it's out there that people are like, Dead Branch it's 10 out of 10. You see Dead Branch, you take it and you win the run and you don't think anymore. And like, that's just, I mean, obviously that's hyperbolic in the other direction, but it's just so strange that I'm looking at a thing and someone else is looking at a thing and we're saying such completely different things. It reminds me of American politics. Maybe I'll edit that out.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about Dead Branch. It's like American politics.
I want to tell a very brief story about a run I did. This is the only time I was on the Switch. I was playing in bed.
Whoa.
Oh, baby.
No, that's important to this story.
Was it Silent or Watcher?
I was Ironclad.
Is this a safe for work podcast moment?
No, I had Dead Branch, and I had Corruption, and I had, I think, Snecko Eye, and I fell asleep as I was playing. I don't remember what happened. I was just pressing buttons. This was on Ascension 20. I wake up the next morning, and I see that I have beaten the heart. And that's like, so, to be fair, I literally beat that run in my sleep.
I think,
I think you woke up somewhat and don't
I
remember.
was like half asleep,
Like,
but I was just pressing buttons.
Half asleep.
I was pressing, that's the
asleep.
point, is like, it's not that Dead Branch,
It's very good with Corruption.
yeah, it's not that, I think that, like, the miscommunication here is not that, like, Dead Branch immediately creates this situation where you have this, like, deck you don't have to think about anymore and you just win, and you just, like, throw your deck at the enemies.
That's intangibility plus tungsten rod.
Hey, we don't talk about intangibility. But, yeah, so it's not that Dead Branch just immediately creates that, it's that Dead Branch can create that, and it's so easy. Once you get Dead Branch, it's so easy to just start taking cards that exhaust and do that. And, like, it's not that, like, the
like
Dead
Rebuild.
Branch... It's not that, like, the Dead Branch just
Build and
makes
rebuild
that
were in a
happen.
boat. Build fell out.
Yeah. It's that, like, the fact that it can happen and it is so, like, pretty much a self-piloting deck at that point once it does, and like, it's really easy to pivot into that. It doesn't take a lot of, like, recalibration on your part to do it. It's just a huge impact for a single relic to have. I think you'll agree that, like, as far as the different things that relics can do that fundamentally change what your run does, Dead Branch is up there in things that make the run very different.
Sure.
Play them, and
But
they do
sometimes
so.
you
I hate
don't
cards.
want cards.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, there are
It turns out I
plenty of
pass
times,
on
yeah.
card rewards, like, a lot more than Jake does. Like, on Act 2...
Surprised me.
I pass a lot.
yeah, but I
think
remember
you
we
pass
compared numbers
more.
once. Like, in Act 2, I'm passing on over half of card rewards.
I probably do, too. I don't know. I'd have to look at it.
In Act, I used to pass more and I used to remove more. I used to play more like you do, Adam. As time goes on,
Yeah, actually, I did, too.
I've shifted to
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
just taking
Yeah, a lot of
stuff.
people have,
Yeah.
like, start out doing thin decks and then, like,
Yeah, and that
pivot
must mean I'm
into-
wrong.
No.
No.
That doesn't mean
Yeah,
you're wrong.
I was...
Yeah.
It must mean that we're all jaded.
Yeah.
Probably.
We've all given up on life.
No, we've been turned into a green mineral. We've been jaded.
We have... Oh.
Nice one. Yeah, but that goes well into Busted Crown, which is a relic that we disagree
Busted.
on. And
Okay.
by we, I mean mostly Jake. Jake thinks that Busted Crown is bad, right?
I
Busted
think
Crown is probably the worst relic you can take in the game. It's almost like the abandon run button as a relic.
It's really, really not.
Like,
please tell me that's
for the
hyperbole.
Act 2 boss.
No, I mean I'm being.
I think it depends a lot as to
End
whether
of Act
it's
2,
1 or
it's
Act
just
2.
really bad. End of Act 1, it's abandon run. It's the.
Don't think so.
There are so many things wrong with Busted Crown. For one thing, I mean, you're seeing a third the cards you would be seeing. Your deck is, like,
What
in
if
a
you
lot
have
of ways,
that-
going to be a third as powerful as it would be.
What if
And
you have that-
Whoa!
yeah,
Whoa, if you're seeing 1/3 of the cards you're seeing, that does not mean your deck will be 1/3 as powerful.
you have a third the chance to get the cards that would make it powerful.
Okay,
so
let's say that that's true, which
I
it's
think
not.
I think
It
it
is.
depends a lot on where your deck is, right?
It does.
If your deck has a lot of tools that it's going to need already and you don't need that much, if you're likely to be able to get most of the rest of what you need from going to shops, the Busted Crown looks a lot better.
This is a pretty big fundamental difference that I have against apparently everyone else in the universe. But
No.
I try not to fight elites, and because I don't really invest in relics all that much.
I think if I fought fewer elites, my average time that I lived in most of my runs would increase.
But you'd win less, right?
But I'd win the end less often.
Yeah, my whole strategy is around just like surviving long enough to get a deck that comes together, and that involves dedicating a lot of my resources to thinning cards and just being very selective about the cards I put in my deck, rather than getting a whole bunch of, like, a high quantity of relics and a high quantity of cards, and then, like, fighting a lot of elites to get swole or whatever.
But surely you acknowledge that both of those things work.
What I will acknowledge is that one strategy is the way I do it. Another strategy is the way you do it. I will also acknowledge that things that are in between those are not good. Like if you like.
Well, there's.
I think there's things that are in between that can be good.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
sure. There's situations, but like if you like take my outlook on things and you're like, but Adam, you should fight more elites. No, but Adam, you should invest less into thinning cards.
If I take
You gotta change all of it.
If I take your average deck and try to go fight more elites with it, I'm gonna die.
You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
I take your deck and I just shove
Try
all my
to
gold
avoid
into
elites.
thinning cards, that's bad.
You're gonna die.
That's
yeah.
bad.
Yeah. You're gonna die in Act 2.
Yeah, here's what I
usually.
acknowledge. You need to have a holistic strategy
Yeah.
that makes sense logically together.
The thing is, I also sometimes do what you're talking about doing. Is like it depends. Like that run I described earlier, where I got Pandora's Box and on the Watcher, and like half my cards were powers. Yeah, I'm not taking that into an elite fight. But like I did evolve that into an amazing deck later, and like it's just a different strategy. Like,
But if I see Niao allowing me to transform 2 cards, I'm gonna do that. That is great. And I don't think you would. And I think that's play style.
I might take it.
I really
It depends on
might.
what else is on offer.
Transforming is
a lot better than removing.
moving?
Like transforming is high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
I think it's the best thing that Niao can give you.
I think usually
Out of all
the best things, in my opinion, Neo gives you are golden relics. And if you're Ironclad or Watcher, a choice of a rare card is like the top tier that you can get.
I was going to say,
Watcher has
I
such good
typically
rares.
look for relics or choice of... I don't want to take a random rare, but
No,
a
no,
choice.
random rare is bad. Choice of rare. And
Yeah,
that's
and
class
those are
dependent.
good.
That's class dependent. for me.
I think both times I took a random rare on Watcher, I got Alpha.
Rip. Well, okay, for the record, Alpha's a bad card, but it does like straight up win Act 1.
Yeah,
Alpha
and then I collapsed right
steps
after
on
that
Act
because
1.
I was building around it because I'm like, well, it's
Yeah.
what I got.
I did the same thing. I don't know what to tell you what the right way to handle that is. Because I have yet to take Alpha and win. I don't think I've ever won with Alpha in my deck.
Oh man, I want to play some Watcher now.
I've
This card.
I've definitely won.
You might.
My first Watcher
maybe you
run,
won
I
with
believe
Alpha.
I had Alpha in my deck, but I was just taking
But
whatever.
you know, if you figure out how to do that. But like, wait, I'm sorry. What did you say?
I was saying that my first run ever with Watcher, I had Alpha in my deck and I won, but it was Ascension 0. I was just taking everything to see what it does.
I'm talking like 820. I did play a run where I took a deck that was centered on Alpha very far. I got it to the heart. I got Omega in play on turn 1 against the heart.
And then you lost.
Hard. Yeah, I died very, very hard.
Because against
50
the heart,
turn just isn't
50
enough.
damage a turn isn't enough.
Yeah, it's not. And like, you gotta block and stuff like that. It's hard. Game's hard, man.
Yeah, I know.
There are a few rare relics that are like don't deserve to be rare relics, but like there aren't very many.
Like Shovel and Peace Pipe, and actually Adam would probably love Peace Pipe.
Peace Pipe is overpowered, so is Smiling Mask.
Peace Pipe deserves to be a rare. Peace Pipe is actually very good.
Stone Calendar.
I think the worst one is the Specimen.
Wing Boots is quite bad. I don't think
Boots is overpowered.
Wing Boots is weird.
You never have to fight an elite. Oh, well, so good.
You can fight more elites with it,
and you can get more campfires. Oh, it's so amazing.
I'm looking at them right
getting
now.
More campfires, that's legit. I use Wing Boots to get more campfires.
I'm looking at them right now, and I think the Golden Eye is the worst one, but maybe I undervalue Scry.
Golden Eye? I thought that was a shop relic.
It's a rare.
I don't know what that does.
I've had it multiple times.
I don't even remember. It's like
whenever you
a Watcher relic.
Scry additional cards.
Yeah, it's a Watcher relic that doesn't do much.
It's garbage. The Cloak Clasp, on the other hand.
Cloak Clasp is crazy good. Cloak Clasp is just like buffed Thread and Needle. Like,
yeah, because it doesn't wear away.
Yeah, it doesn't wear away, and it like gives you more block. Like,
unless it gives you less block.
Unless it gives you less, but it usually gives you more. Cloak Clasp is at the end of your turn you gain block.
Gain a block for every card in your hand.
Yeah, gain a block for every card in your hand. And the Watcher has a bunch of retaining stuff, so like it's.
I tend to not take that much retain.
I tend to take a good amount of it.
I do take some, but it's not like retain. That's such a big bonus.
It is a huge bonus on the cards. It's just
obviously it's.
I think like
usually better than not having it.
Tranquility and Crescendo are not very good cards, but
I love Tranquility and Crescendo.
Oh, which ones are you not taking?
I don't know. I'd have to go look at them again.
I mean, like, because like Protect is very, very good.
I'd take like a Protect, but I'm not too big on it.
I'd take like 2 Protects and be very big on it, just because all the blocking it does for me at relevant times. But I think Smites are pretty good, just because
Windmill Strike.
What?
Windmill Strike.
Oh, Windmill Strike is kind of blah. Yeah.
I thought that. I love scaling, so I was like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, this scales so slow.
Watcher is.
There's this defensive version of that where I'll often take one. Where is that card?
Watcher made me question my entire conception of scaling, just because of how differently she plays from everybody, and it's why I settled on the definition of scaling and front load that I have, and I think it works for Watcher, but the way Watcher scales is so different than... And, like, the things that, like, scale more traditionally, quote-unquote, with her, like you'd think, like, Windmill Strike would, are not very good.
Or, what is the defensive? Why can't I find it? The one that blocks and increases.
Perseverance is... Perseverance.
Yes.
What you're thinking of, that one's pretty bad. Yeah.
I don't mind having a copy of it. But I don't want much.
I mind having a copy of it, because it's, like, a defend, and, like, or if you don't play it, and then it's, like... I don't know. The numbers on that card need to be higher.
I'm just going to play it. I end up playing it 0 to 1 times per fight, but sometimes that's fine enough for me.
Deceive Reality, I think, is really good. Because just being able to split up your block.
Will. I'll take that. Yes, that's one of the best defensive cards.
Yeah, that one's.
Well, I mean, the actual best defensive card is Talk to the Hand, but
Talk to the Hand is legit. Like,
It's actually the card I think I want more than any other card in the whole Watcher
Talk-
card pool,
well, yeah. So like, it depends on what I'm doing.
including rare.
Okay, Watcher has some crazy rares, but like,
I know, but
I mean, sometimes Wallop is better than Talk to the Hand. It depends on what exactly is going on.
sometimes I have enough devotion going on that I enter Divinity in over half the turns.
No, I mean, like, sometimes I have enough Mantra going on that I enter Divinity every turn.
Yeah,
Or, I've entered it, like, twice in a turn a few times. It's like...
I'm not sure if I've done that, but I had an upgraded devotion, another devotion, and I omniscienced the upgraded devotion. So I was gaining 8 mantra every turn, and then I had a little bit other mantra gain and a couple other random cards. It was
yeah. So upgraded devotion will get you there. Worship can kind of like get you there on its own. Worship is like one of the few divinity cards that you can just take and without any other support, and it can get you into divinity by itself. Because
I do it anyway. I take prostrate sometimes. Feels great. Man.
Yeah, I mean,
mostly because I love fasting so much. I'm just begging for 0-cost cards.
I have come to the conclusion, I don't know if this is true, but I believe right now that taking fasting on 3 energy is a big mistake. Every time I've done it, I've felt really bad about it.
I've done it a few times, and I usually don't play it until I've got my 4th energy.
Yeah. Now, taking with orange pellets, on the other hand...
Well, yeah, if I've got, like, an artifact... If I have, artifact or something. That's where you need artifact for.
So, like, yeah, Adam, just... Fasting is this 2-cost power on Watcher.
It's so good.
That says gain 3
I actually
strength
don't know how good it
and 3
is.
dexterity.
I haven't figured it out.
But at the beginning of your turn, you gain 1 fewer energy.
Cool.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around how good it is, but I find it very interesting, and I love the concept.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very good if you have more than.
If you have a lot of energy, it's probably like real good.
Some people have. Like, I've heard the idea that it synergizes really well with 0 costs, and it probably does, but I've never been able to... Like, I feel like the deck that takes fasting and then takes a bunch of 0 costs is then, like, creating a problem for itself and then giving itself the solution to that problem when, like, why did it create the problem for itself in the first place?
Because it's, like, fasting plus just lucky is just... that's where I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's some synergy with those for sure. I don't know how good it is, honestly, either. Like, I'm too new to the Watcher's card pool. I have some ideas. I think that I've played a lot. I like one-trick Watcher like you're doing for a while. And I have gotten to the point where I'm pretty confident in a lot of her pool and, like, understanding how good things are and stuff like that, but, like, there's a lot I have to learn.
So far, it seems like the best thing to me to do, and I really don't know whether this is true or not, but is to just be switching between stances a lot, and there's so many things that benefit off that like seems to be, but there's, like, the deck that I've had the most success doing is getting a bunch of Wrath, Empties, and like a couple of Calms.
Yeah.
A bunch of Flurry of Blows, and then hopefully like a couple of Talk to the Hands. And I just get all my block from attacking and switch dances and attack you 20 times a turn, which even works on the heart because you're getting blocked the whole time.
Yeah, right. So that's the reason it works on the heart is because you have Wallops and Talk to the Hands. Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely a way that Watcher scales really well is stand.
But I often sprinkle some mantra in as well.
Yeah, I personally have had the most success in terms of actually beating the heart when the deck has been focused on divinity. I don't know, like... And it
turns out that 3 extra damage... Or is it 3 energy or is it 2? It's 3,
energy
right?
And triple
3
damage.
Energy and triple damage is really good.
Yeah, it turns out it's viable. But, like, I don't know. Some people seem to... I've heard people tell me it's not viable, but, like, it's worked for me a lot. I don't know.
You're not vulnerable.
Yeah. Then I did one time beat the heart with the water pressure deck, as it's been.
What?
You never leave calm. You have a bunch of like waters, and you do all your damage with pressure points. It's not good.
Oh, I tried to make that work, but I guess I didn't have the calm.
I've tried it like
And
5 times.
like waters.
And one time it worked on Ascension 7. It's a good deck.
I think pressure points is really interesting.
It's a good deck.
It's just like so different from the rest of. Anyway, we should go.
Yeah, we should probably.
I gotta go to bed soon.
Oh, hey. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. A lot of the end of the Dominion podcast, we leave you with a kingdom, and I thought for this podcast, it would only be appropriate to leave you with a random seed.
Yeah.
And we could talk about it. So let me give you the seed. It's 3DN2PP KXUZW0S. One more time for our audio-only listeners.
No!
That's
If you're an audio-only-
3DN2PP KXUZW0S. And we recommend the silent for this run. And remember that time from The Matrix when the Keymaker is handing Neo stuff.
Oh, is this
and
that
he's like,
run?
When he says to Neo, he gives him the key, and he's like, and when the time comes, you will know which door is the right door. So when you're picking your Neo bonus, it's like that. When the time comes, you will know which one is the right one.
Yeah, I'm taking a curse for a random rare relic. Woo!
So I'm thinking.
Get normality. Got stone calendar. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you get clumsy. That's actually not that bad.
I think this is a really fascinating random seed. I think it's a lot of fun to play out, and I remember thinking, oh, the first card I want to get rid of is that second burst, and I was, that was really, I regretted that later on. So let us know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments section.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you might come back for the next episode if you aren't
You
asleep.
didn't give up Dominion for Slay the Spire.
You didn't unbuckle your seatbelt or something.
Whoa! Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I genuinely think this is unusable.
I just want you to know.
Yes.
I just want you to know that when you put a plexiglass blade on the jigsaw that's supposed to not shatter plexiglass, it totally shatters the plexiglass. I just want you to know. It is crap and it doesn't work.
Wow. I know that now, and I wouldn't have known that if you hadn't said it.
Yeah.